The Bronx has seen its honest percentage of horror, from violent crimes to unsolved disappearances. But not anything should put together the metropolis for what befell to Collin Small, a case so brutal that even the most seasoned investigators were shaken. It started out as a simple lacking man or woman's document. A guy vanishes without a hint, his rental eerily untouched. But when his frame became found, dismembered and scattered like discarded waste, the real nightmare started. Who became behind this ugly crime? And what turned into the terrifying fact at the back of Collin Small's destiny? Stay with me until the cease, due to the fact the deeper we move, the darker this thriller turns into. Collin Small turned into a person like some other. He had an ordinary, a quiet life, and a small circle of buddies. He wasn't well known, he wasn't rich, just every other face inside the crowd of the Bronx. He labored as a nighttime shift supervisor at a nearby warehouse, making ends meet like hundreds of others within the city. But in spite of his ordinary life, there has been something about him that few people knew. Collin had secrets and techniques. And on the night of October 7, 2019, the one's secrets caught up with him. That night, Collin became purported to be at work. He by no means showed up. His boss assumed he had called in unwell. But when he neglected a couple of shifts without note, concern began to grow. Then got here the primary purple flag. His phone became nonetheless on, receiving messages, ringing, however in no way being answered. His condominium showed no signs of pressured entry, no conflict, no signal that he had planned to depart. His wallet, keys, and call had been internal, as if he had just stepped out for a moment. But days handed, and Collin by no means back. The police were notified. However, at the beginning, it was treated as a widespread lacking people case. Maybe he left Metropolis. Maybe he got into problem. Maybe he just didn't want to be located. But something felt off. Collin wasn't the type to vanish. And when investigators started looking into his existence, they found something worrying. A name. A call that could quickly turn this case into one of the Bronx's most scary tales. For every week, Collin remained lacking. His family searched desperately, setting up flyers, asking around, hoping for any clue that could make them him. Then, on October 15th, a call got here and that no one become organized for. A group of sanitation employees were clearing out a dumpster behind a deserted building after they observed a large, heavy responsibility trash bag leaking a darkish, thick liquid. The stench turned into unbearable, something rotten, something wrong. When they opened it, their worst fears were showed. Inside had been human frame components, severed, butchered with precision, carefully wrapped as though someone had attempted to cast off them cleanly. But the maximum annoying part, the head turned into missing. The police arrived within minutes, and soon forensic specialists confirmed what the Small family had dreaded. The remains belonged to Collin Small. But this wasn't just a murder. This became something far more sinister. Now the case had become a murder investigation. But the brutality of the crimes suggested that whoever did this wasn't just an irregular assassin. The cuts had been specific. The dismemberment became methodical. This wasn't an act of rage. It changed into calculated. Detectives started out digging deeper into Collin's lifestyles, searching for something that could give an explanation for why someone could want to kill him in this sort of brutal manner. And that's once they located it. An antique police record, buried within the data, connected to Collin's call. A case from 5 years in advance. A case that had been quietly dropped. A case that concerned a man named Victor Reyes. Victor Reyes wasn't simply everybody. He had a dark beyond, one packed with violent crimes, intimidation, and most disturbingly, connections to more than one disappearances. Reyes had once been a butcher via alternate, working in a meat processing facility within the Bronx. But he wasn't simply slicing meat for a residing. Rumors swirled that he had a far darker facet. There had been allegations, whispers about humans going missing after crossing him, but no strong proof had ever been located. Until now. 5 years before Collin's disappearance, Reyes had been questioned in connection to some other lacking character's case. A man named Luis Ortega had vanished below mysterious occasions. The most effective witness inclined to speak. Collin Small. Collin had given a statement, one that might have placed Reyes in the back of bars. But earlier than the case ought to go to trial, the costs were dropped. Luis Ortega turned into in no way located, and Victor Reyes walked loose. And Collin? He went returned to his normal lifestyles. But according to an ear buddy, Collin had been paranoid ever for the reason that. He told me as soon as that he felt like a person become watching him, the pal recalled. like he made a mistake trusting the law enforcement officials. Now, years later, turned into it feasible that Victor Reyes had ultimately come for revenge. Investigators traced Collin's last moves through protection cameras, and what they observed dispatched chills down their spines. Surveillance pictures from the nighttime he vanished showed him on foot down an alleyway near his rental. He wasn't alone. A man changed into with him. A tall, determined, partly obscured via the bad lighting. But when the police more advantageous the pictures, the identity had become clear. It changed into Victor Reyes. They noticed Collin hesitate. There became a controversy. Then, after a worrying second, he observed Reyes into a constructing. Collin became never seen alive once more. Detectives rushed to the location, an deserted apartment complex that had lengthy been a hotspot for illicit pastime. When they entered, they had been hit with the overwhelming smell of bleach. Someone had tried to clean, but that they had ignored something. Tiny lines of blood invisible to the bare eye had been located on the ground, and inside the nook of the room, a rusty hacksaw stained with blood. This wasn't just a murder. This turned into a ritual. Someone had taken their time. Someone had recognized exactly what they had been doing, and that someone turned into long gone. Detectives scrambled to track down Victor Reyes, but he had already disappeared. His apartment became empty, his assets left in the backup. It changed into as if he had vanished into thin air, like he had finished this earlier then. The media called him the Butcher of the Bronx. The metropolis was on facet, fearing that he might strike once more. But the most traumatic part, Collin's head turned into by no means discovered. Some say Reyes saved it as a trophy. Others agree with it turned into destroyed, erased like Collin's life. But one aspect is positive. Collin Small's tale stays one of the Bronx's maximum scary mysteries. And possibly somewhere inside the shadows, Victor Reyes is looking. Waiting. Looking for his next sufferer. Months handed, and in spite of an extensive manhunt, Victor Reyes became never determined. The case went cold, fading from the headlines as the city moved on. But Collin Small's own family in no way observed peace. His mother frequently observed nightmares, visions of her son calling out to her, his voice echoing from the darkness, begging to be found. Then, 12 months after his disappearance, something eerie befell. A package arrived on the small circle of relatives' doorstep with no go-back cope with. Inside changed into a single object wrapped in brown paper. When they unwrapped it, their blood ran cold. It became Collin's painting's ID, the one he had the night time he vanished. The police tested it for fingerprints, but there has been no match. To nowadays, no one knows who sent it or why. Some agree with Victor Reyes fled the U.S., escaping justice forever. Others suppose he in no way left at all, that he's nevertheless within the Bronx, hiding within the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Over the years, whispers of comparable disappearances have surfaced, with eerie similarities to Collin's case. Bodies discovered mutilated, carefully disposed of, and constantly lacking their heads. Did Victor Reyes keep his ugly work, or turn into Collin's murder just the beginning of something a ways more terrifying? One issue is positive. The streets of the Bronx will never forget the horror of Collin Small's destiny, and possibly neither will the man who took his existence. What do you watch happen to Collin's lacking head? And extra importantly, do you watch Victor Reyes remains out there? Let me realize your mind inside the feedback underneath, and take into account, now and again, the scariest monsters aren't those in testimonies. They're those strolling amongst us,